fall, I will become a professor of strategic communication at Ohio University, and I will begin with a story about Diet Cherry Coke. Very obvious. At the age of 9, my dad told me we were going on a road trip, so we got in the car and we drove to this city known as South Bend, Indiana. I asked, why are we doing this? It was because my cousin, who lived in Buffalo, which I think is like way over there, was going to become a freshman at Notre Dame, and somehow it was our responsibility to help her move in. And my job was to carry an unbelievably large amount of Diet Cherry Coke into her dormitory. And there were two very important things I learned from this experience. One, always ask if you are being paid when you move someone in, because I got $0.00. And number two, I learned that this place is pretty cool. So to have an opportunity to be in this room with these people doing something that hasn't really been done in this country before means the world to me, and so I am grateful to all of you. I'm also grateful to my dad because I want to fast forward to another amazing college experience when I was driving to Ohio University for my freshman year, and my dad was in the car, and this time it was my moment. And as we were driving, my dad said, "Son, we need to talk." When you're 18 years old and you're driving in a car and your dad says, "Son, we need to talk," you have two options. Option one is open the door and hope. Option two is get in some sort of weird fetal position and listen to the wisdom that you are going to get whether you want it or not. To which he said to me, "There are 3 things I want you to invest in when you get to college." Okay. Number 1, he said, you need to invest in a good mattress because I know you won't sleep. Sleep is important. Cool, I do that. Number 2, he said, you need to invest in good shoes because if you're going to do anything in your life, you need to hustle. And I don't want your feet to be sore. And I'm like, that's good, Dad. He said, number 3, invest in an umbrella because you don't know when you need it, but when you need it, you really need it. And today we're like, my dad was really smart. Too often I think of strategic communication in the same lens as I think about the umbrella. We need communication when we really need it. There's a press release. Oh my God, let's go viral, whatever that means. By the way, viral is not a strategy. Just write that down in your notes. Okay, cool. Or all heck is broken loose and we have to have an immediate crisis response because we didn't build a crisis plan and now all the communicators are brought into the space. What I want this presentation to be is very much in the weeds. How do we build process, people, bells, and whistles to use communication to make the world a better place? So in order to do that, I'm going to ask for your help on a couple of fronts. There are pens. Those are really nice pens, by the way. Man, good pens. There's paper. I want us to go Dwight Schrute, Dunder Mifflin. I want you to be able to write things down because, again, there is no silver bullet, or I guess I should say golden bullet because there's a big dome over there. There's no magic answer. If I had the magic answer, I'd have already said something. I want you to be able to come up with custom solutions. Let's make this human. Let's make this personal. Let's also have some fun because we're talking about some serious stuff. So I need your help for this. Are you open to being able to do that? So some of you are like, no, I'm leaving right now. It's okay. It's fine. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you the TLDR version. So the most important thing I'm going to tell you, I hope you will use that really nice pen to write it down. Storytelling drives technology. Storytelling drives technology. I will walk to the other side of the room for dramatic effect. It's that important. Storytelling drives technology. Because if the story doesn't resonate, and so often we are chasing the new bell, the new whistle, that we lose sight of the larger picture. I've had the joy of presenting across the country for 15 years. I did a presentation on Google, was it Google Plus? And how I was going to change strategic communication. Oh, it didn't. Remember Vine? Ugh. Tout? The World Wrestling Federation bought Tout, and it failed. How does that happen? It happens very easily. Storytelling drives technology. And so part of this process is how we can all come together in the same sandbox, be ethically responsible with our content, and be able to share the story in a way that people are actually going to consume it. So to start, let's logically think about JFK. Sure, why not? JFK brought this up. He's smarter than me. I love this slide. Because when we think about the notion of crisis, and many people, the initial thought to AI is crisis. Fair. There's two levels of crisis. One is the danger. I think it's important to talk about the danger. I think we've heard about the danger, but I also want to think about the opportunity. So I want to start with one very simple process. These 5 things that I'm going to go over. For those of you, don't you love it at a conference when you just grab your phone and take the picture? This is one of those I would take the picture slides. These are the 5 things I want you to think about. If only there were enough monitors where you could actually take the picture. I think we'll be able to pull this off, I hope. These are the 5 things I want to talk about. I want to talk about planning. Planning's good. I want to talk about production. Production's easy. I want to talk about personalization. Tricky. We'll talk about promotion. Where are our comm people? People who work in scientific communication, the writers, the editors, please use the Oxford comma folks. I want to talk about the promotion of it. And then we'll talk about performance. Because how do we know what winning and losing looks like? So first, I want to show you something that makes me, this is planning. This is the danger on the JFK slide. This is something known as the conversation prism. Allegedly, these are all of the communication vessels we are supposed to use to reach an unbelievably diverse audience in 2024. Just those. That's it. Now that sound you hear from scientific communicators might be them lighting their hair on fire because that's impossible and we don't have a cloning session set up for the webinar or the conference or anything else. You cannot do this as a human being. You can't. So how do we make it better? How do we not be my cat Noah trying to chase its tail? Noah's not a very smart cat. I want you to be smarter. So what I want to think about here is how can we look at AI in the concept of building the story and being able to use the story as the center of our space to then go out and try to share with as many diverse audiences as possible. Will you hit all of them? No! Will you hit the important ones? Yes. Here's what I also want to talk about. And thank goodness we had this in the morning keynote because I think this is incredibly important for both scientists and communicators and anyone in between. And thank goodness most of you are sitting down. Because did you know on the internet, there are people who aren't nice? Seriously, there are trolls on the internet. And it used to be that these Muppet wannabes would get on their keyboards and they type, oh, boo, bah, boo, whatever, right? Well, now with AI, those trolls can work at light speed. They can create 1,500-word posts in minutes. They can throw reviews anywhere in seconds. They are fast. And it is not a matter of if, but a matter of how soon that tsunami ends up somewhere near your space. Fitting as part of a hurricane rolls through today. So when I think about the notion of listening and generating an AI policy, the content creation is lovely, but it has to be a two-way street. The opportunity is how do we as an organization better listen to constituents, listen to all of the audiences we mentioned in the morning keynote and yesterday evening, and be able to react and adapt to what's happening. That's an amazing opportunity that we didn't have years ago that we have now. So how do we start? And the good news is, where are folks affiliated with Notre Dame? Who is affiliated with Notre Dame? Great for you all. I'm so happy that you're here and you're in a delightful place. So you should feel great about yourselves for a few seconds. Because the first part of the process that we have to think through is making sure that there is a cross-functional, Dwight Schrute cross-functional team that can help with guiding your process. Because there will be lawyers, there are finance implications, there are accounting information situations, there are grant implications, there are implications everywhere. Their voice is going to be important. And I want to be able to make sure that as things develop, I can quickly reach out to them. This is step one of crisis communication. Build the team. I would argue, do the same. Or else we go down Schitt's Creek. You might see a theme developing. Step two. This is tough. This is tough for me. Let me stress this is tough for me. This slide is tough. This slide for our communicators and our scientists is tricky because what we have to do is we have to be the ones who lead. We have to be the ones who coach people up. And this slide is tough for me because number one, Nick Saban, Notre Dame people are like, boo this slide, right? Number two, Bill Belichick destroyed my Pittsburgh Steelers 742 times. He also convinced Charlie Weiss to take the Notre Dame job. So I know this is a tough thing. But the point he brings up, this is good. It pains me to say this. It pains me to talk about the idea of where victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious. How many of you have ever had a list for anything? You've all had a list. How many times has something not on that list shown up and you're like, oh, that's it. People always want me in crisis communication to build a list of what could go wrong. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I refuse. Because the first time something on that list doesn't appear in a crisis, you're done. You're my cat chasing its tail. You have to be the leaders on this. And this is where this is a struggle. Because how many communicators have heard, you're a communications person, I'm a communicator, you're a social media expert, I use the TikTok, and you're like, oh no, oh no. No, it's the TikTok. It is. I've been in the meeting, it's the TikTok. Okay. You've got to be the ones to be able to lead people who don't fully understand the scope and scale of the situation. You have to be the ones who are the connective tissue to connect the dots. We talk about creating the environment and the culture. That's a really important power. Yes, you can do. Now it is time for things that you need to be able to teach. So in order to do this, I'm going to do something very strange. I'm going to ask all of you, after I do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, to just boo. Just boo. Like boo. And not like boo, like just boo. Can we do this? All right, 3, 2, 1. So weird to ask to be booed. But many of the things that feel obvious to us, citation bias, bad data, are likely not obvious to a cross-functional team of people trying to create a responsible policy. Finance people may not understand it. Accounting people may not understand it. Legal people might be utterly mortified. We have to understand that right now, if good information doesn't go into the system, what are we going to get? What are we going to get? And last night we heard about just random, crazy, spaced out stuff that can happen. We have to be able to create that balance. Okay? What else do we have to do? We're going to play a game called Reverse Jargon. How many of you have that sheet of paper with all of those amazing photos and we're trying to play that game? So this is what I did last night. I went to my daughter Leah. She is 14. She is outrageously competitive. I kind of love that. And I texted her a photo of that, and we are doing a Farkas family game. Whoever gets the most of these right gets to pick where we go to dinner. And I showed her this, and as I did the picture first, and then I'm typing everything in, and my daughter, she's 14 in August, this is her response: dude, what the flopper? Okay. She didn't understand what was going on. She didn't understand what was happening. And when I work with scientists, when I work with researchers, this is the biggest challenge we have, is that when we get in a room like this, what feels so obvious to us is outrageously not obvious to others. And while they will not go, dude, what the flopper, to you, they're thinking about it in a different way. So as I'm thinking about what makes me get up and want to go to work every single day, when I am thinking about my passion project that's going to make the world a better place, when I work with scientific communicators, these are games that I play. In full disclosure, I used to do improv. I like games. Think of the complicated concept. And by the way, I will freely admit, I've got a master's degree, I'm a professor at a university, and I read some of those terms on the sheet, and I'm like, pick C, I don't know, 7, nothing. How do you explain it to a 70-year-old? 70, right? Different, but it can spark ideas. How do you explain it to Leah at 14, soon to be, going on 30? And here's the key factor to me, and I want to do, this is strange, because here I am with a bunch of really smart scientists, and I'm going to talk about some brain science. We'll see how this goes. Explain it to someone multitasking. How do you explain it to somebody who's on their phone and not making eye contact with you? And you might say, that never happens. To which I will say, how many of you have ever been on Zoom? And you can see, you know this, like you know who's looking at you, and then you know somebody who's kind of got their glance over the other way, and it's like, are they looking at fantasy football? Like, what are they? They're not there. They're not there. How many of you have ever taught a class in front of other humans? Those people in the back with their computers on aren't looking at your PowerPoint, sir. No disrespect. Here's why. If I am great at what I do, if I'm amazing, I have to say something 3 times before somebody hears it for the first time. Chances are it's 8 to 11 if I'm okay. Here's where it gets tricky. My daughter, Leah, has ADHD. My son, William, has ADHD. Guess what? Dad has ADHD. Yay, genetics. And so as we were going to Nationwide Children's Hospital to learn how to manage this, the physician said that there are some circumstances where a kiddo's brain is just so different, not better, not worse, different, that you have to say something 100 times for them to hear it for the first time. That explains 2 very important things. Number 1, why my dishwasher is never unloaded. Seriously, I reminded him this morning, do the dish, okay. Number 2, do me a favor. Let's be very honest. Again, no judgment, it's all good. Look around at how many people, and I'm in the same boat, how many people have your phones on the table right now? It's okay, because I do it too. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When you look at someone's brain when they're on their phones, and you compare it to someone's brain when they're on ADHD, it looks the same. So you may not have a medical diagnosis of ADHD, but when you are scrolling through the TikTok, your brain's acting the same way. So that amazingly awesome information that you might really care about for whatever reason will go in one ear, out the other, never to be remembered again. 89% of what we hear every day goes in one ear, out the other. My challenge is creating an environment so you remember it and hopefully you like it. And that involves precision with language and taking what seems obvious to you and maybe honing it differently to reach a diverse audience. So here's where I pause and you take a picture. Because I, for some reason, had free time and thought, what better way to spend an hour of my time than go through the code of ethics of a dozen different communication organizations and see what guiding principles they have as part of their decision-making process. And after my eyes glazed over, perhaps a nap, maybe some Starbucks, this is the list that I was able to compile. And is it comprehensive? No. Do I want to use a 4-point font? No. It's a starting point. But what you have to be able to do is you're creating the policy, and then I promise I will get to more brass tacks in a little bit, is you have to determine which 2 or 3 of those drive the bus. And for every single organization, for departments within a university, those guiding principles can be different. And let me stress, not better, not worse, but different. So I've got to be able to figure this out. And I've got to be able to have that conversation with people so that we're all moving in the same direction. Here's what else I need to do. And I absolutely loved the opening exercise that we had where we had a chance to talk with people for a couple of minutes during yesterday's opening keynote. That was an amazing experience. I think every single person here learned something. And it reflects something that all of us can do. And that is, we just have to simplify the offense. You have to simplify the offense. Because if our brains are moving in a million different directions, if we're getting text and emails and whatever, if the TikTok is exciting, we aren't going to remember everything you want us to remember. So how do I really hone in on core messaging? I'll tell every client I work with, I tell every scientist, I tell every faculty member, anyone I work with, what are the 3 things I need to know when you get out of here? What are the 3? Just 3. And I've got to be able to reinforce that. I've got to be repetitive without being annoying. And most of the time when I have these conversations, here's what comes up. How many of your organizations have a mission statement? How many of you can state the mission statement verbatim? I'm putting my hand down because I can't either. Vision statement. I got nothing there. What's sort of obvious to many of us maybe isn't really as obvious as we think it is. And how can we reinforce that? Because lots of really smart people spent lots of time talking about how to build mission, vision, and values. Reinforce that in what you're saying. Those are tools that help take complicated and make them a little easier for people to understand. What else do we do? We're going to simplify strategy. I want to show you an example, because it's easy to talk about this, but I want to go through this with the Cleveland Clinic, and I apologize if you're from Cincinnati or whatever, if there's some whatever. This is the Cleveland Clinic's content strategy. I will read it very quickly because I think it's important. We're going to engage users in a daily conversation using health, wellness, and clinical content unique to the Cleveland Clinic, useful, helpful, relevant at moment of consumption, the concept of you read my mind. Here's why this is a critically important statement. And in order to do this, I'm going to put my hand over my eyes. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if this applies to you. How many of you have ever worked with someone who came to you constantly with ideas for communication that were completely off the rails and not anywhere aligned with what you're trying to do with your work? If so, no judgment, I'm putting my hand over my eyes, no judgment, it's okay to raise your hand, I'm not gonna look, I kind of want to peek, but I'm not gonna do it. Okay, I'll put my hands down. I'm going to call that person Steve after my brother-in-law, who always trolls me about fantasy football. Here's the thing with Steve. Steve cares enough to have an idea. How many of you work with people and you wish they would have more ideas? It's okay. It's okay. I really want to peek. Ugh! I don't want to tell Steve, go away. I don't want to tell you, Steve, that idea is dumb. I don't want to troll Steve. Steve cares. What I want to do is say, Steve, thank you so much for that idea. Here's our strategy. And when you have some ideas that connect here, let's run with it. I want to give Steve guidance. I can't have a functional team having these conversations if I'm not giving them guardrails. This is a really easy content guardrail. Now I want to talk a little bit about production, while also giving a plug. Who here has been encouraged about podcasting? Like, we got to do a podcast. Let's do a pod. And you're like, oh, God, no. Okay, I want to make life simpler. So this tool is called Descript. I have a podcast. It's the Strategic Communicator with Dan Farkas. We are part of the Marketing Podcast Network. Happy you are here. And editing the podcast and getting it all done took me like 4 hours. And then I found this tool called Descript. If I am in communication, I want to write down the word Descript now, because here's what I love about Descript. Number 1, free trial, free. Take that budget, free. And here's what Descript allows me to do, and I'm doing this from a recent podcast. It will transcribe the entire podcast, and it will determine the voices. So I will have my guest on, and it'll be Dan with your question, and then who was I interviewing? Paul Reutzer from the Marketing AI Institute. And what it will do is it will allow you to edit the podcast through text. So when I ask a dumb question, gone. Here's what this also does. How many of you know someone who's really, really smart, but maybe they use some verbal fillers? What is your verbal filler? I am the king of so. So, what are we going to do? Where are folks? The you knows, likes, whoa. What it will allow me to do is it will allow me to use this finger, and I will click a button, and it will say remove all filler words. What I will do, because I want balance in life, is I will use this finger, and then I will click, and all those filler words are gone. And so what AI allows me to do is take a process that used to take me 4 to 5 hours and do it in under an hour. That gives me 4 hours of my life back. Here's the other advantage that this has. And again, I want us all to do this. Indulge me for 1 second. Again, think of your pen. Is there somebody you work with who's awesomely smart, they're amazing, and oh my gosh, trying to get any time on their calendar is like pulling teeth? If so, just do me a favor. On the count of 3, I just want you to say ugh. Ugh, as in ugh, it is impossible to find this person. Will you do this for me? So 1, 2, 3. Well, that was like a somber, oh, this is so hard. Go, why is Terry's schedule like this? Ah! Once I grab a hold of Terry in 2038 or whenever you get that person, now I've recorded like 30 minutes of their content. I've got 30 minutes of their content. That is such a powerful tool. So here's what I'm going to do now. We've thought a little bit about some bells and whistles, and I have more. We've thought a little bit about building the team. How do we get everybody in the room and be efficient with that time? Because I'm going to do the UGG challenge again. How many of you have ever been in a Zoom meeting or a real meeting, and the snacks weren't very good, and the meeting went an hour over, and you really didn't get anything accomplished at the end? And some of you are like, oh, it's my entire, right? Now let's really UGG this out. So 1, 2, 3. Oh boy. I want to make that UGG happy. I want to turn UGG into happy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some list. What I'm also going to do is give you a 5-second timer, because this is the time where I could talk through all of these things, or you can just screenshot them. If only there were cameras, and if only there were monitors. And what I want you to do is think of your agenda. I'm giving you the agenda as to how to build a responsible policy and make it work. And what I mean by the agenda is you all get together. Before the meeting starts, you come up with some answers from your perspective. And then when everyone comes together, you've got the ideas, you're ready to go. So I'm going to do a 5-second countdown. With the help of Eugene Levy, we'll roll through some of these. So I've already done this one. 4, 3, 2, 5-second pose, next. Short-term timeline. What can we do in the next week? Long-term timeline, where do we want to be in the next month? The countdown clock is moving quickly. Oh, by the way, there always will be budgets. There always will be allocation of time and staffing. How do we feel comfortable managing that? Specifically, who's doing what next and when is their deadline? And, oh, by the way, in the immortal words of Springsteen, sooner or later it all boils down to money. How are we going to be able to connect the work that we're doing with AI to potential collaborators? Who here was looking for a collaborator on research? Oh, there's potential here. Grants, donors, other development. All right, now let's find some more Springsteen. This is what I want to feel comfortable with as I build the policies. What are those core principles? Guidelines for use. What are we going to do? Guidelines for use. Where do we run away? How do we build guardrails that we've talked about? So here's some more examples. And again, I'm going to roll through these pretty quickly. You can screen grab them. The slides, I'm sure, will be online later. But ways you can use this to create some degree of simplicity. Number 1, fostering ideas. Fostering ideas. Some of those ideas might help. Some of them are terrible. You need a human lens. This will help you very quickly do it. I also want to pause on the notion of, does your supervisor know what's going on? Probably important. 2, editing and reviewing content. Is it perfect? Oh my God, no. I was telling someone earlier, I have AI, and I will have AI do assignments of mine in class, and then I will grade the AI version, and the AI version usually gets like a C or a C-. It might pass. But helping understand what those guardrails are, helping people understand the best way to create prompts to get what you want to get. Because good prompts create better outcomes. By the way, it can also help you make sure that the language is inclusive and respectful to meet the needs of a diverse audience. The theme I keep hearing from presentations already, and what I suspect I'm going to hear for the rest of the day, is we've got to reach people where they are. We have to go to them. And that's a fundamental change in marketing. It used to be push, 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 push. How do we go where they are? Now, what else can we do? Engagement. creating pipelines of communication. Because ultimately, yes, we're talking about AI, but are there ways I can expand relationships beyond purely an AI policy? I work in strategic communication. We never work with legal until bad things happen. And that's one of the worst ways to work with an organization. This will help you foster opportunity. Now, I want to talk about two things, and I'm going to pause here for a second, because I want you as individuals to be able just to think about writing this down on the paper. Because I think you have to have ideas, you have to be leaders in terms of how to tackle this. The notion of how are we going to protect data, because the moment you put anything into generative AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, the moment you put it in, it's basically part of the formula. And two, how do you protect privacy? Because the one thing where I think there's a lot of agreement is that we all want privacy in some degree. How we define that, a little bit different, but we all want privacy. So as you're thinking through this, and again, it's different for every single department. It's different for every single organization. I can't give you a magic answer, but what I can tell you is these questions, when answered, can help you get where you want to go. Some things you can't do. Obviously, privacy, wash, rinse, repeat. The answers are not going to be correct. Sensitive topics, a lot of this, again, feels obvious, but I want to make sure it's here. And I also want to make sure, very quickly, about these two subject matters, and I want to make sure there's 10 minutes of Q&A, so thank you for keeping me on track. I'm going to pause for 60 seconds because many of you are with other individuals in the space. And I want to pause for 60 seconds, maybe a little longer, and I want you to be able to talk through this issue. Number one, what happens when whatever principles you create, what happens when somebody breaks the rules? What happens when someone breaks the rules? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my phone out. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the timer. And I want everyone here just to think for a moment, what happens when somebody breaks the policy rules? And then we'll talk through it for just a second, and there's one more question I'm going to have for all of you. So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. And in the words of the Great British Baking Show, on your marks, get set, bake. All right, somewhere there is an individual who had a microphone. I don't know where that person is. And if they're not here, we can just shout. We're all friends at this point. If there's a mic, I'll pause. If you could think through a second about what we do to break the rules. And here's why. Because absent consequences, bad things can happen. So, we got a microphone, lovely. Really quick, just one or two folks. What would you do? How do we react when somebody breaks the rules? What do we do? What can we do? This is where life gets tricky. This is where, this isn't an easy question. I'm going to divert eye contact. What do we do when someone breaks the rules? Yes, sir. Thank you for being so noble. I appreciate it.
If they don't know that they made a mistake, first let them know they made the mistake and explain the details of what went wrong. And if you can solve it internally, if there's no other major parties that had been harmed.
So you have to let them know they actually made the mistake, which means you have to let them know rules exist. I work at not just Ohio State University, but the Ohio State University. If there's an AI policy, I don't know what it is. I got nothing. By the way, I teach strategic communication. I talk about this all across the country. I don't know. I don't know the rules. What seems basic to us maybe isn't necessarily basic to everybody in the place. Any other person, what do you do what happens when the rules are broken? It's not an easy question, which is why set it up on the front end. This has to be part of your policy. Here are the consequences. Now, this is a really good way of thinking through this. because I've given you some stuff that feels a little bit abstract. I want to simplify things. This is the Marketing AI Institute. Paul Reutzer, who I've had on the podcast, and a great team have developed this. If you're into conferences, they do an annual Marketing AI Con in Cleveland. I believe it is in September of this year. This is what they call their manifesto. This is one singular document that very clearly articulates how this organization uses AI for its strategic communication and how it would encourage other organizations to use strategic communication. And it lays it all out. And it's on the Google machine and the internet, so anybody asking questions understands the rules of engagement. Now, is this perfect for your university? I don't know, probably not. I know we have people at Vanderbilt. I don't know if it's right for Vanderbilt. I have no idea. University of Michigan? I don't know. It's going to be different. But the point that matters is that if you have something like this, we understand the rules of engagement. And ultimately, in any form of life, it's very simple. When I order something at Starbucks, I want to know what I'm getting, and I want to know how much it costs. There's clear rules of engagement. This is their way of outlining it. This is their way of explaining their recipe. And when you have something like this, and you connect it with the existing communication strategy that's already there, now we understand how to go through the process. Now we understand how to create effective communication in a fast amount of time to be able to do what we want to do and pursue our passion projects. Now we have the ability to create once and publish everywhere because the story is amazing. I'm going to call a very quick audible, and then I'm going to get into some tools and tricks and hacks. Someone yesterday, and I apologize, I don't know where they are, but they asked about storytelling ideas and concepts and how you build that. There's something in my book, available on Amazon, we incorporated called the Ann Handley, by we I mean Ann Handley uses it and she lets us use it. It's called the Ann Handley Storytelling Framework. Ann Handley Storytelling Framework. So this is how I want to think about storytelling. And this is a great way to take incredibly complex concepts and simplify them. Who here has ever played Mad Libs? Remember you had the 19-hour road trip and we didn't have tablets and we actually had to think? Oh, those were the days. Imagine a Mad Libs style concept for telling your story without bad words. That's what the storytelling framework does. And is it a little sophomoric? Absolutely. Would I ever share it with a client? Oh my God, no. What I would do is use that as the bottom in my jargon bonanza with all of this amazing scientific principle, and now we can look for ways to meet in the middle. And here is how AI can help you through this process. And these are just some quick tools, right? Number one, ChatGPT I think is amazing in terms of taking really complex content and being able to create short, digestible clips. I'm a big fan of that, okay? Two, if I need to do research, Perplexity is a way where I can get information and get it siphoned down, words hard, quickly. The third tool I love this tool. It is a tool called Opus. And here's what it is amazing at doing. It can take my 50-minute presentation. Thank you for being here to record, by the way. And what I can do is I can put it online, and I can give it specific key terms that I think are important. Thought leadership, AI policy, floppers and 14-year-olds, whatever the key themes are, right? I can take those. Opus will go through the presentation, and it will find clips, and I can determine how long the clips are, 30 to 60 seconds, 60 to 90, whatever, and it will find the best clips of my presentation, and it will automatically create the subtitles, and it will automatically be something I can download in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So instead of me spending all day on Twitter /X/ whatever gross name it has, I can just pre-publish. Instead of me having to be on LinkedIn for 8 hours a day and see a bunch of thought leadership posts, I can just throw it online and it's done. And if I use a tool like Zapier, I never pronounce it correctly, it will all automate and I don't have to worry about it. I'm all about simple. I'm all about simple. So indulge me for 1 second because I asked you about that really smart person you can never get a hold of. Whoever that individual is that you've written on your list. When you interview that person, and you've got 30 minutes of amazing content from an absolute genius, I will tell you as a communications person, I can get 3 months worth of content out of that 30 minutes. And it would take me a couple hours to get it created and scheduled. Opus is the best. Here's what's also amazing about Opus. Is there a fee associated with it? Yes. But I'm going to give you a word that universities and higher ed love. Free trial. $0, 0 cents. It's a really powerful tool. And what it allows you to do is leverage what you are already doing. Who here ever goes to conferences? That would be all of us. Who here plans conferences? That would be most of us. You can get a year's worth of content out of a conference. And Opus easily can make it happen in less time. I love Descript because I will put everything into Descript, and Descript I can just clip, and I'm text editing. I'm not even looking at the audio. It cleans up the audio for me. I don't have to worry about it. Depending on your policies, a tool like Leonard can help with images. There's a million bells and whistles out there. In fact, here is the bells and whistles aggregated list. Feel free to take a photo of it. Have I used all of these tools? No. Would I ever use all of them? No. The goal is find what works best for you. I love Descript. I love Opus. I love Hootsuite in terms of scheduling. It's easy. It's easy. But the challenge is saying, play around, find what works best, run with it. So from the content side, here's the real value. I'm not asking anyone here to do more work. None of us are twiddling our thumbs, spinning around in our chairs all day with nothing on our eye count. I'm not asking you to do more work. But these tools free up time for you to be more human. To use this device, did you know what you can do on this? There's a thing, it looks like a phone. You can actually call people and talk to them. I don't need Zoom. It's amazing. I can build relationships. I can be a connector. I can spend more time researching. I can spend more time reading. You know what I do with the time that I get from utilizing AI? I coach my son's soccer team. I take my daughter to the pool and to the mall. I'm not allowed to talk to her when she gets to either, but I take her there. I'm a better person. And because I'm a better person, I'm therefore a better professional. This allows me to do more with less time. Quick other laundry list of other tools. WonderTune's nice because it'll summarize long articles for anyone with no attention span or no time. Many of us fall in that situation. I want to be mindful of time and make sure there are time for Q&A. A couple other things to think about in terms of performance. This is absolutely down your wheelhouse. Somewhere, W. Edwards Deming is smiling. The PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act, Six Sigma, Lean, whatever you want to call project management process. You've got to be able to study this because I'm going to give you ideas. Some of the ideas are amazing. I fully admit some of the ideas are going to stink, but you're smart. Incremental measurement. My hypothesis is short form video today, July, whatever today is, short form video is going to get you better engagement on social, which will create and foster opportunities. Short form video is going to help you a lot on LinkedIn. I think, I'm really confident, but I don't know. Test it. And we all know in scientific circumstances, things may not go the way you want them to go. You adapt, and you do it consistently. We wash, we rinse, we repeat. And what I would also encourage you to do is be efficient with your time. One of the great things about science is we know we don't know everything. That's what's amazing about it. That's why I love talking to so many smart people who have these amazing passion projects, because we know we don't know everything, and we're hungry to learn more. So how am I going to learn daily? How am I going to budget 10 minutes to learn more about the AI space? How am I going to communicate? And it doesn't have to be a meeting. It doesn't have to be Zoom. It doesn't have to be Teams. How can we connect weekly? How can we maybe meet in person monthly with very dedicated tasks to make sure that meeting is efficient and effective? Ultimately, when we think about this, these are things, this list, we all do it. We all do. This isn't new to us. We all plan. We all have production cycles. We all try to personalize and A/B test certain elements of things. We all have mechanisms for promotion. We all have mechanisms for measurement and performance. We're not doing something radically new. It's just in a new space. The core principles that you are great at, that you have built over decades, still apply. We're just using the muscles differently. And at the end of the day, even though technology is radically different, this still wins. Storytelling still drives technology. And you as communicators have amazing power to do amazing things. You as scientists have amazing power to showcase opportunities to use your work to make the world a better place. My hope is these tools having given you some content and some process to make it work. But I also know you're all different. Not better, not worse, different. So I've done a couple of things. Number one, that is my email address. Number two, that is my cell phone number. I'm going to turn my ringer off. Oops. By the way, here's why I love social media. Someone found out that I was presenting and is a Notre Dame alum and told me to get her a sweatshirt. So apparently that's on my list now. So thank you, Molly. I want to make sure there's at least 10 minutes for Q&A. Hopefully I'm close. And I know there's opportunities to connect later. If there's any individual question about your individual circumstance, I want to be a resource to make sure that you've gotten the most of this experience. And again, this is a special place. You are special people, and I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to hopefully give you some ideas to take the ball and run and do amazing things. So thank you for that, and if there's any questions, sir, I didn't get your name, I'm so sorry. Microphone, awesome dude. I'm sure you'll be running around helping us out. So thank you again. If there's any questions, I'm happy to help whenever you all are ready.
Thank you so much for the entertaining talk. So I have a question about storytelling in general. How true do you feel like the sentiment is that whoever tells the story first is the one that's believed?
No. I mean, it's nice. I'm a former journalist. I did TV news back in the day. And we always were in this rush because we had to be first. Live, local, late-breaking, continuous team coverage. What happens when you're first and you're wrong? What happens when you report that Joe Paterno died and he didn't? We talk about credibility. I think there's a balance between being concise and thorough and being able to convey it. Like you have to, if it's not right, what do you have? Right? What do all we have is our credibility. Like if I'm in sales and I like triple sales quotas, like I probably have more leeway than somebody who doesn't. I'm a communicator. I don't build bridges, like literal bridges. I try to connect people together. So yeah, it's nice to be right. It's nice, I mean, be right first. Be right. Be right. If you are first, that's lovely, but that's not necessary. Because I look at it this way, and we did this in TV news all the time. And let me fully explain. I'm going to be very honest. This is one of the dumbest things I ever did with my time. I would be a reporter, and what I would do is I would watch all 3 channels simultaneously to be like, well, who got this story? Oh, they did this first? Oh, here's where they went to Chief Meteorologist Todd Howe with the Doppler forecast. How many of you have ever watched all 3 TV news channels at the same time? One. Because you were a journalist. Because you were goofy like I was. So why am I doing something that my audience doesn't do? Why am I doing that? Be right. If I can be first, lovely. But if you think about the lens of sport, I have no idea who was the first person to say who the new coach at Notre Dame was. I don't know. So I think we are inherently competitive and look at that as a metric that I think is, it's not, I don't want to diminish it, but I think we at times overemphasize it. Bueller.
Connor is our amazing, awesome.
Thank you. Let's give Connor a round of applause.
But I do have a question.
Connor's going to put in like 50,000 steps today.
You mentioned several of these tools that you find useful. Are there any that you have tried that you're like, yeah, this is terrible, do not use, it's not come along far enough yet? Just to save time, if there's any you've tried and not liked.
I don't like ChatGPT. Here's the thing, and again, thank goodness you're sitting down, because there's a free version and there's a paid version. Did you know the paid version's a little bit better? I don't believe it. So, from my lens, that is a struggle. Now, here's the other thing that I think is important. There are some people who might be Adobe people, and great. I'm so happy you love Adobe. Anybody who uses Canva? Any Canva people here like Canva? I love Canva's great. It is absolutely asinine for me. I'm sorry, what is your name, miss? Zoe. It is not a good choice for me to say, Zoe, no Canva, no, Adobe or nothing. Because Zoe's going to be like, so much for my voice. And then Zoe's going to be like, I'm going to go work for somebody else. It creates a bad relationships process. So I look at the lens, and when I work with people, what's your comfort zone? And are there areas that might be better suited for you and maybe not for other places? Selfishly, Canva is not the best for me as a tool, even though I have the paid version, because I do so much audio and video, and Descript helps me cut it down. Opus helps me be able to create the segments. And then Zapier, I feel like I should know how to say it, and I don't. But I use that because it helps automate stuff and then eventually create a bunch of boring marketing things you don't want to hear about. It's different for everyone. And the challenge that I face on tools is, again, like we're very tool-focused, we're very tactic-focused, and I can appreciate it, but I want to empower teams to use stuff that helps them do what's best. And for me, if I could only pick one, for me, I would run with Descript and figure it out. And Descript, by the way, free trial, I think it's $30 a month, but for the amount of time it saves, it's the easiest check I write. Actually, I don't write checks. I don't know if I have a checkbook, but it is the transaction that I make through a digital, you get it. Yes?
So having a calculator in your pocket makes some arithmetic skills obsolete, right? So do you think that using these skills in your practice have made important, like fundamental skills obsolete for you?
No, because there are principles of what good storytelling looks like that still matter. And there's a lens that you have and a perspective that you have. And I want to go back to the listening point and genuinely understanding the audience, where it comes from and what those perspectives are. There are things I know about the students that I work with that technology cannot figure out, at least not yet. There are concepts in the way the eye works that I know that work that other tools maybe don't understand. I'll give you a great example. The gentleman filming this mentioned that it was going to be a much better shot if we moved this over a little bit because of where we tend to stand during presentations. AI is not going to catch that. Not yet. Now, I can fix it in post, but then I'm suddenly doing it. So from a humanity perspective, I'm creating an infrastructure that allows the technology to work for me. I'm allowing the structure to work for me. And I go back to the notion of, if I have extra time, can I use that to learn more, to be more human, to understand more individual needs? Think of it in this final way. How many of you, and this is, boy, I'm sure no one will raise their hand, how many people here have ever had to do a survey before? You're all like, oh yeah. How many of you have ever had to do a focus group or you ever talked to humans? I mean, in many cases, it would be weird to just do a survey and not talk to people or vice versa. Like, you kind of got to do both. Like, That's kind of the lens that I have. And I have to have the perspective of when I'm using technology, when I'm using AI, when I'm using Descript, when I am using Gemini, what is the specific outcome that I want to get out of the experience? What does the transaction look like? I got to drive that bus. I want to drive that bus. Because otherwise, and we've all done this too, who here has ever just gone to their phone and we're scrolling, ooh, somebody's birthday, somebody's got a new job on LinkedIn, scrolling, my brain's doing nothing, technology's driving me and I'm not sure where I'm on my phone and this probably isn't healthy. I don't want to do that with my work. I don't want to do that with my life. So this allows me to think through that and be more intentional with what I'm doing. And the final thing I will say about that, and I don't want to get on a life soapbox, but having that mindset with work and tech, I think has helped me be a better person, be a better parent, be a better spouse, because it's made me feel more in the moment. And there's value in that. That's really helped me a lot. There's one more question in the back, or am I way over on time? Do I have time? I'm at time. I'll talk to you during the breaks.
We'll take one extra minute here.
1 minute, I'll be fast.
So what we're paying for with all of this technology is not actually dollars; it's our data. So Adobe Creative right now, added this wonderful AI assistant that you can generate content, images, but in the agreement, it actually says we're going to use all of your data to do that. So, and I know we're out of time, so I'm just going to essentially ask the question, and maybe you can answer it, and everybody else can look for answers for themselves. But how comfortable are you, how comfortable are we essentially relinquishing everything that we do? We write all our video content, on all our creative content, to train all of these AI assistants to save time. So, that's the question.
So, quick version. It's different for every organization. You have to measure the risk versus the reward. Plenty of businesses run away from this. I respect it. For some, it's a different priority. I think every case is different. But I think you mentioned the meeting, that's one of the things you have to talk about, is are you comfortable with that risk and do you understand the rules when you play the game? And some won't want to play that game. I respect that. Some are comfortable with that. I think it's different for everybody. I think we all have different factors, which is good.
Thank you so much to Dan for the energizing presentation. We're going to take a 8-minute break while Matthew gets set up, so help yourself to coffee, and we'll see you back here at 11 for Matthew's talk. But again, thank you so much to Dan for being here today. We're glad to have him back in South Bend after 30 years, and we hope it's not another 30 years before you come back again. So thank you very much.